This podcast is recorded live during my weekly Zoom virtual healing circles. Be sure to stick around to the end of the episode to learn more about how you can join me for these live virtual events. So, welcome to the virtual healing circle with me, Jen Fable of LiveLifeUnbroken.com. And tonight we are going to put it all together, outline. So this is, for those of you who have been following along, this is going to wrap up the big bow that wraps up all that we have talked about up until this point. This is your graduation ceremony from kindergarten energy work up into elementary school energy work, because I'm going to start to get into some slightly more fun, well, not more fun stuff. That's not true. All this has been fun. Slightly more advanced stuff as we go. For those of you who are just at the beginning and are just getting started, this is the trail of breadcrumbs that we're going to lay out to you so you know where you're headed and what the next steps can be. So why is this important? Like I said, when you're first starting to develop and connect with energy, with your intuition, with all this fun stuff, it can be hard to know where to start. It can be hard to know what steps to take. And so my goal tonight is to provide you with a roadmap to developing your intuition and to developing your connection with divine universal energy, however you refer to it in your life. If you're unsure how to begin, where to begin, or which steps to take in what order, this is what it's all going to be about. And these are the steps that you can take to start to connect with the truth of who you are. So when you first begin working with energy, whenever someone says, what do I do? Where do I start? I always say, start with an altar. An altar is your microcosm representation of the macro universe, and it is symbolic of the concept of as above, so below. Now, this is something I go in depth with in the altar video, so this is just a quick little overview of it. But basically, we know that we are a reflection, we are a fractal, we are a mirror of the universe. There are aspects of us in our body, in our psyche, that are a direct reflection of what is out there. And when we're working with energy, it's a very intangible thing. And so building a space, building something to represent the universe that you can work with helps get all your senses involved. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Helps get your thinky human neurology on board, because working with just energy is a little beyond what is tangible for our five senses and for our human neurology, and we just can't seem to figure it out. And so creating an altar is always a great first step, because it allows you to start to identify how you want to show up in the world from this perspective. Now, when I say as above, so below, these are just some examples of what I mean by that. So on the left, you will see a cross-section of the human lung as well as the branches of a tree. In the middle, you'll see a human fingerprint paralleled with the rings of a tree when you cut it. And on the far right are neurons in the human brain, as well as the structure of galaxies and how they're connected in the universe. And so we parallel both at the micro level and the macro level all that is in the universe. And so we can encompass all the energy of the universe in a little tiny altar so that we can work with it with our human neurology. So you always want to start, okay, I don't want to say you always want to start there. If you're not sure where to start, that is a really good place to start, okay? It allows you to start to have something tangible to work with. Now, once you have an altar, and like I said, in the altar video, I go through how to build it, why you want it, what to include it, all that fun stuff. Once you have your altar, now you want to set up a space. We all want to reach Zen. We all want to have this elusive connection with divine where we're just one with the energy around us, but we don't set up our space to support that intention. And so we often try to just shut the bedroom door, tell everyone to, shut up, I'm going to meditate, and then just sit down in the middle of chaos and try to find our Zen, and then wonder why meditation is so bloody hard. It's hard because we haven't set up the space. And so when you are setting up your space, you want to do it in a way that creates something or accesses something called your meta K, a metaphysical kinesthetic. And I'm going to go deep into this concept next week. That is the topic for next week's circle, because this is an elusive one that is really hard to wrap your head around. But the best way to understand your meta K is if you right now were to close your eyes and put your right hand out so that it's palm up, And I want you to imagine a warm ball of light sitting in the palm of your hand. Imagining that ball of light, seeing it, feeling it, hearing it. Maybe it has a sound, it might have a smell. And as soon as you know that there is a ball of light in your hand, I want you to just put your hand up. Cool. How do you know? What shifted? That little imperceptible, and you put your hand down if you want, that imperceptible little, yeah, there's a ball of light in my hand. That feeling that's not a feeling, that sixth sense, spidey sense, that is your metaphysical kinesthetic. Something shifted in the moments between, no, there's no ball there yet, to, yeah, there's a ball there. Something shifted in you. And that is your metaphysical kinesthetic. That is the sensation of your intuition. And that is what we want to calibrate on when we're on any kind of energetic or spiritual journey. Too often we try to calibrate on our feelings. Does it feel right? And I see so many posts online about people who are like, I feel this and I feel this. And it doesn't matter. So you don't want to calibrate on, what am I feeling? We're so hung up on the what am I feeling or why am I feeling this? Doesn't matter. You want to focus on where do I feel it? Where in my body did I feel a shift of, yeah, there's a ball of light in my hand. So when you're setting up your sacred space, your goal is to create the strongest meta K possible so that you don't just think, yeah, there's probably a ball of light in my hand, but like, yeah, 100%, there's a ball of light in my hand. I could, for sure, as strongly as if there was actually being stimulated by your external senses. So that is your goal. Now, how you do that, oh, bonk. How you do that is through the process of anchoring. Now, this is a process from psychology. It's magical in that it works with our human neurology. So anchoring is based on, so back in the early 1900s, I believe, Ivan Pavlov was a researcher and he wanted to study the effects of different stimulus on dogs. And so he would take a dog and he would ring a bell, and then he would write down, rang a bell, nothing happened. And then he would take a dog, he'd show them a steak, and he'd notice that they would salivate and get like all super excited and their tail would go. And he'd be like, okay, so steak equals salivation and excitement. And then he would pair the two together. He would show the dog the steak and ring the bell over and over again. And over time, eventually, it got to the point where all he had to do was ring the bell and the dog would act as if it had seen the steak. It would salivate and it would get very excited. So the concept of anchoring says that if at the height of an emotional response, a stimulus is applied, the two become linked neurologically. So when you are working with energy, your job is to create anchors using as many of the senses as possible. If you always play the same music, if you always use the same sense, if you always follow the same order, then these rituals, this repetition over time will create anchors by virtue of the fact that ritual and repetition creates anchors. The more anchors you have, the stronger your meta K. The stronger your meta K, the stronger you are creating that guidance system and building the sensation of your intuition. Everyone always wants to know, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's my fear? When you can recognize your meta K and separate it from your feelings, your emotions, that's where the journey begins to get fun. So your first step is to create an altar to represent the universe in micro form. Your second step is to come up with some sort of a ritual or some sort of sequence of processes that you follow using the same smells, the same music, the same whatever, anything that activates all your senses to start to create anchors so that just looking at the candle or just hearing the sound elicits that response in your body of which is what we're trying to access when we want to meditate. This is important. This is a very important step that too many people like to skip. It is very important that you remember that what goes up must come down. The higher you want to go energetically, the more you want to play in the energy, the more you must be grounded into Earth's energy. It is impossible to reach higher realms until you are deeper. They will remain deeper into Earth's energy. They remain inaccessible to you. And the way I like to think about it is, think about like, if you remember back to like schoolyard days when they didn't give a crap about our safety and there were monkey bars and they were like rusted edges and just full of tetanus and no one cared. In order to move across monkey bars, you had to go from one and reach out and grab the one in front of you. And you had to be holding on to it before you let go of the one and reach forward. So you had to go one by one. If you attempted to let go of the starting point before you reach out for the bar in front of you, you fall down. If you are not connected to that starting point, to that starting bar on the monkey bars, to the earth's energy, your starting point, then you won't be able to reach out and grab the next bar. You'll fall down. You'll blow up your life. This is where people start to invite that 2x4 from the universe. If you are playing with energy and your life is a clusterfuck of toxic people and unempowerment and victim archetype and just chaos, then chances are you have not grounded your energy. So the next step on your journey, once you have built your altar, once you have started to set up anchors in your space to elicit a strong Medicaid, is to make sure that you're grounded, that you're making sure you're accessing that. And tonight we are going to be doing a grounding meditation. It is important to always recognize that you exist on 4 realms and you must work with all of them in order to have full healing. You cannot expect to play in the energy. I see a lot of people online ask questions like, I need a spell to make my coworker be nice to me. I'm like, no, you need a pair to speak up and say, stop being a dick to me. Like, we still live in a physical reality. So while it is important to work with energy, you are working on the energetic realm so that you can have the strength, have the confidence, have the inner power to speak up. So you have your physical realm. This, of course, is anything that you can sense with your 5 senses. So anything you can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear is part of your physical realm. You have the emotional realm. This is where emotions and memories live. This is a part of us. It's connected to the part of our psyche known as our unconscious or subconscious mind. Unconscious, subconscious, the linguistics, they're the same thing. I personally like to say unconscious because sub makes it sound less than, but they are referring to the same thing. Your unconscious mind is the part of you that connects up with the divine energy. It is the part of you that connects with your intuition. It is your intuitive, instinctual self. And it is the part of you that is outside of your awareness. You have the mental realm. This is connected to your conscious mind. This is anything you're aware of. So right now you're likely aware of the sound of my voice. You're likely aware of my incredibly symmetrical stick figure, which if given a marker and a piece of paper, I could never come close to drawing in a million years. And you're likely not aware of the sensation of your feet, wherever they are, whether they're on the floor or tucked up under you. Only now that I mention them, you're probably noticing your feet. So until it became part of your conscious awareness, that information was being processed on the emotional realm by your unconscious mind. Okay. Then of course you have the spiritual realm associated with your higher self. This is the energetic place. This is where we all like to play. We are meant to play with energy so that we can clear the limiting beliefs and clear our self-talk in the mental realm, clear the trauma and shadow that we hide in our unconscious mind on the emotional realm so that we can manifest it in the physical. This is the bridge that we need to build. This is why my online course is called Bridging the Gap. Because if you attempt to manifest from the spiritual into the physical without working on your mental and emotional selves, at best you'll get 50% healing. At worst, you'll blow up your life, because when you move energy, you're going to start pulling things out of your shadow self. If you believe that you are a worthless human being that doesn't deserve any good, you cannot pull something good from the spiritual realm into your physical reality. Your doubt is going to get in the way. It's going to mess things up. And so it's important to build that bridge. So that's the next step on the journey, making sure that you are actively working on your emotional and mental self. Now, I have a lot of people online who are like, I'm doing shadow work. I know what my shadow is. I'm like, if you can name it, that ain't it. Our unconscious mind is where we hide all the stuff from ourselves that we don't want to admit about ourselves, and we hide it so thoroughly that we don't even think there's anything there. So oftentimes working on the emotional plane and mental plane involve asking for some outside assistance. It's the reason why I always say you don't have to work with me as a coach, but if you are going to work with a coach, please choose a coach who has a coach. I know a lot of coaches who don't have a coach. We all need someone in our corner. We all need someone who has perspective. I, by very definition, have no perspective on my life because I'm in it. I don't know my shadow self. I know my victim story. I need someone else to slap me around a bit and help me heal that. So while it is possible to do this work on your own, this is often the part of the journey where you need to start practicing what's called interdependence and getting some assistance. And you want assistance from someone who sees your soul for the beautiful thing that it is and is not interpreting your wound through their own wound. And that's why a coach is often handy. I am not going to go through this one in detail because this is a large concept, but this is where it's really important to start to recognize that the information that is exposed to your five senses is infinitely vast compared to what your actual human neurology can work with. And the part of the brain that actually filters that information, couldn't get the word out, is known as the reticular activating system. And we want to make sure that we are activating this part. This is the part of you, this is the part of the brain structure that creates your experience from your perception of reality. So we all have our own unique perspective and our own unique version of reality. And it is the reticular activating system that governs this, to not exclusively because the brain's complex, but this plays a large role. All that incoming data goes through this part of the brain, and then only the stuff that it deems relevant makes it up into your awareness. Now, if you are constantly scanning the environment for threats, then what your reticular activating system deems is important is anything that it thinks is going to harm you. And so you're going to live a life of looking for fears, looking for disasters, looking for mirrors of your trauma. This is why working with someone who knows how to reprogram this part and change the filters through which you experience the world is important. When we are working with energy, we are changing the filters if we are accessing the emotional realm. You cannot use your thinking mental realm self to change the reticular activating system, because by the time it gets to your awareness, it's already passed through your RAS. Which is why when working with energy, we want to activate the unconscious mind as much as possible, because it's the direct transit route to our higher self. In other words, there are two sides of your brain. You've got your logical, linear thinking part. That's the left hemisphere. That's your mental realm. You have your symbolic, emotional, safety-driven self associated with the right hemisphere of the brain. And the two words that are important here are symbolic and thinks in pictures. This is important for energy work. You cannot think your way through energy work. In order to build that bridge, you have to activate the emotional realm, which means you need to use its language, which is symbols. I hit the button too many times. There we go. I will remind you at this point in your journey, because this is where you're going to start to be like, oh my God, what if I do it wrong? What if I'm not activating my RAS right? What if I don't have the right anchors? What if I'm not doing this correctly? This is the journey, when part of the journey when that shows up. And this is why at this point in the journey, you need to keep in mind and remember that your three eyes are the only thing that are important. At the end of the day, you don't need anything fancy. You can have an imaginary altar. It doesn't matter. As long as you set your intention, as long as you activate your imagination, and as long as you follow your intuition, that's really all you need. Now, that being said, it is easier to activate your imagination when you have a strong Medicae, which you can induce using your five senses. So that's why having things in the physical realm makes it more fun. And at the end of the day, you only need the three eyes. I want to talk about your intention for a moment. In earlier circles, we talked about the idea that at the quantum level, all possibilities exist in superposition to each other in a cloud of potential. And it is our focus, our observation, our intention that actually collapses the quantum wave into reality, which means that at the quantum level, we are creating reality, not experiencing reality. So your intention is important because your intention is what collapses the quantum wave. If your intention is fear-based or avoidance-based or hatred-based, then that is where you collapse the wave. If it is love-based, if it is expansion-based, then that is how you collapse the wave. So that is why your intention is so important. It seems like not a big deal because it's on our, we use our mental realm self to set our intention. And so we think, well, it's just a thought, big deal. But it's actually a really big part of it because it's what collapses the quantum wave. Next is your imagination. Now, to activate your imagination, you want to make sure that you are, hit the button too soon. You want to make sure that you are, this is where you build the bridge on the emotional realm. Your imagination is driven by your unconscious mind, right? If I say to you, imagine a imagine a rose. You may or may not visualize a rose. You may or may not imagine the smell of a rose or the feel of its petals. Doesn't matter how you imagine, but imagination is something that is outside of your conscious mind. It is something that is purely symbolic and activates that emotional realm bridge. Now, how do we activate our imagination? This is where things like sigils, which are encoded magical symbols, this is where they come in handy. Because if I write down an intention that says, I am wealthy and prosperous and I have sweetness in my life, and I write that down as a sentence and I hang it on my mirror, and every day for 30 days I read that sentence out loud, that's wonderful, but that is mental realm only. I'm using my conscious awareness, my thinking self, to read words, and that is my left hemisphere of the brain. That's great, but we need the emotional realm involved so we can build that bridge into the physical. Sigils take that intention and encode it in a symbol, and that is what activates your imagination. That is what helps bring that energy down into the emotional realm, and that's why sigil work is really important. So the next step on the journey, once you get to this point, is to start to encode things, to start to play with your imagination, to start to use your intuition, because you'll now, at this point, you're starting to build that Medicaid, and start to create symbols for yourself that represent what you want. Because if you have to hold it in your awareness, that's using your willpower. And you can use your willpower to change, but anyone who's ever attempted to use their willpower to change knows that it sucks, it's hard, it takes a long time. And the reason for that is because it's not building that full bridge. You have a rickety bridge, you have a rickety bridge. Once you start playing with symbols, you can create one, which is a sigil, or if you really want, you can start to tap into the vibrational power of symbols that have been existed and have intentions infused into them for thousands of years, known as sacred geometry. Each of these shapes already has a distinct intention infused into it just by virtue of the fact of how it's been used over hundreds of thousands of years, right? So things like the circle. The circle is a symbol of ineffable oneness, of infinite possibility. It is the symbol of that quantum field. So while saying, there's an infinite field of possibility around me, I collapse the quantum wave, that's the logical thinking mental realm. But the circle activates that intention deep within my DNA, just by virtue of the fact of that's what it symbolizes. Once you duplicate that circle out, it creates the shape known as the Vesica Piscis. And again, all this is included in the sacred geometry video. We go deep into that. From there, you can create the equilateral triangle, which is symbolic of growth and movement and change. From there, you create the pentagon and the pentagram, which is symbolic of the five senses, the five elements, symbolic of the figure of man, symbolic of the path of Venus in the night sky. As you continue drawing these shapes, you eventually come to shapes such as the seed of life and the flower of life, which are considered to be templates of divinity. And then encoded and embedded within that flower of life are things like the tree of life, which we talked about in earlier ones, in earlier circles, as well as Metatron's cube, which contains all five of the Platonic solids. So sacred geometry, starting to tap into that intentions infused, is a really fun, easy way to start playing with energy. So once you've created your altar, once you started to build that Medicaid, once you're starting to recognize that it's now time to take it from your mental realm into your emotional realm and start to play with symbols, you can create your own symbol, or you can tap into the intentions of symbols that already exist. The tree of life is a symbol that is part of the Kabbalistic, it's an ancient Kabbalistic symbol through the Hermetic philosophy. It's rooted in Jewish mysticism. It is embedded in the flower of life, and it is considered to be a roadmap of divinity. And so working with this symbol is a really easy path to starting to move divine energy in your life. When it comes to pulling energy down, oftentimes you're like, well, I don't really know what to ask for. How do I do that? We all want to have prayer. Or send out messages to the universe and say, hey, this is what I need in my life. But then how do I actually bring it to me? Working with the tree of life as a symbol already has embedded in it a huge amount of information. Each of the circles on the tree of life is represented of, there's a tarot card, an astrological symbol, a color, a planet, a concept, an aspect of divinity. So working with this specific glyph is about finding the balance point. And this is a really important part of the journey that a lot of people skip. A lot of people are so dedicated to defining what kind of energy worker they are. I'm a light worker, I'm a shadow worker, I'm pagan, I'm Wiccan, I'm this, I'm a green witch, I'm a hedge witch, and that's wonderful. And that label is mental realm only. Unconscious mind, emotional realm doesn't need the label, but it does need to know how to balance energy. There's no such thing as good or bad, but there is a balance. And the tree of life represents that balance, that we can have too much of one and not enough of the other. So if I have too much wisdom and not enough understanding, then I can't reach knowledge. And so by working with this specific glyph, it allows us to map our path to enlightenment in a tangible way and tap into the infusion of intention that exists within this one glyph. The next step that I like to introduce people to, now that you have your altar, you have your sacred space that is filled with anchors, you can feel your medicate, you're starting to get that sensation. Now that you know where in your body you're starting to pick this up, now is when you want to start to protect that space. You are showing up on the energetic realm as a big beacon of light. You want to make sure that you have protected it, and we can tap into the energy of the pentagram and perform what is known as the LBRP ritual. And again, I go through this in some of the videos where we pull divine light to and through us, and then we seal that space with pentagrams, which again are symbolic of the 5 elements, the 5 senses, the figure of man, things like that. Once we have protected our space, we can now pull light through the middle pillar, that middle path of balance on the tree of life, through our body. And that connects us both above in our mental realm, in our emotional realm, and our physical realm. So the middle pillar ritual activates all the realms and pulls energy through you. Once you have pulled energy through you, now you can actually tap into and manifest what you want in your life without worry of the oogity boogity bad vibes or your own trauma getting in the way. If you have doubts, if you can't silence your mind, if there's too much chaos going around you and you just try to, in the middle of all of it, just be like, okay, boom, I'm going to make myself a spell jar, it's hard to get into it. If you really want to infuse the energy and magic into your manifestations, making sure you set up the space to hold that energy is important. So there's 10 steps. I just realized this, it stops at 9, which is hilarious. I don't know where the 10th step went. I think I was supposed to split 1 and 2. So your first step is to set up an altar. That is the representation of divine energy in tangible form, as above, so below. So you have something to work with. Then you're going to create a space that supports your intention. That doesn't mean you have to get all fancy like the room I have. By the way, this is an unfinished basement and the walls are made of curtains I got on sale and wooden dowels and zip ties. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Even if you have, I've used a piece of paper as an altar and a desk in a hotel room as part of my sacred space. It's your intention that fuels it. But you want to create a space that supports what you're working on. You want to create anchors. So VACOG is visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, which is sense of smell, G is gustatory, sense of taste. The more of your senses you get involved, the more anchors you create. The more anchors you create, the stronger your Medicae. Your Medicae is your 6th sense. It is the feeling of your intuition. It is a big part of it because that is your guide. And you're going to cleanse your space however you want to cleanse it. We talked about that in earlier circles. You can use smudge, you can use sound, you can use intention. Then you want to bubble and ground your energy because if you want to go up, you must go down. Tiling the temple is where we use the basic sacred geometry to set up that space. We can then protect it with the LBRP and pull energy through us using the middle pillar and then manifest. Now, this is very, very, very important. When doing energy work, you must be selfish. You must shine your light so bright that you ignite the light in others. And if you want to offer healing to someone else or do some sort of manifestation or energy work on their behalf, You must get explicit permission from them. If you attempt to offer healing or offer advice or offer input to someone else who has not asked, you are interfering with their free will. And they may need that pain on their journey. You don't know that. Now, if they say yes, it's on their karma. But if you don't ask, it's on yours. And if you accidentally get in the way of someone else's journey because you wanted to help, which is a lovely thing to do, you might be actually taking them farther away from where they need to go. So it's very important that you shine your light so bright so you can ignite the light in others. So some key concepts to remember. This map that I have laid out for you is one of many, many possible options. That being said, it is one that offers the fewest number of steps to get the most amount of gain. Avoid trying to do this right. There is no right or wrong way to do any of this. As long as you set the intention, use your imagination, and follow your intuition, no matter what you do is correct. I started with an incense stick and a tea light. Worked perfectly. All this seems to have happened on its own afterwards. Remember that the goal is always to empower yourself as much as possible so you can shine your light. Use energy work to heal yourself. Use it so you can inspire others through your own journey so that they can be inspired to heal their lives. I see a lot of people who use energy work to heal everyone around them, but their own life is a mess. So use energy work to empower yourself, to help you shine your light, to help you heal yourself. Remember to calibrate on your Medicaid. You don't care if it feels good. I will tell you that the journey will not always feel good. There have been many times my Medicaid has told me one thing, whereas every demon in my head has told me to run as far as I can the opposite direction. This is where faith comes in. Faith means knowing and trusting that you have built your Medicaid and you can trust it. Faith without a Medicaid is blind faith, not as fun. And then, of course, I will remind you to use the Force for good, Luke. When playing with energy, I always say a hammer can be used to bash in someone's head or build a home for the homeless. It is a tool. Energy work is a tool. Please use it to change the world for the better, to change your life for the better, to heal your world for the better, because that's really what its intention is meant to be used for. I wanted to remind you, as always, to decide you want it more than you're afraid of it. When you are first starting out, or even if you're partway through the journey, or even if you're feeling pretty good about it, it is very easy to start to get worried, to allow fear in. All you have to do is decide you want it more than you're afraid of it, and everything's always okay. For those of you who are wanting to go deeper with some of the information tonight, every slide is basically a 20-minute video in my online course called Bridging the Gap, how to bridge that gap between the energetic realm and the physical, how to move it through your mental and emotional in a way that is safe and easy and fun. That's the point of this course. It is 20 videos, so over 5.5 hours of content. You have access to the videos for a full year. We cover all the hows and whys of altars, of sacred spaces, of the quantum world, of the LBRP rituals. So I walk you through it, and you also have access to me for that full year in terms of guidance through my Live Life Unbroken group on Facebook. So when you hit questions or roadblocks, I'm there for some guidance and mentorship. And of course, as always, if you have any questions at any time, please know that you can always reach out to me through my website, which is www.livelifeunbroken.com, or through email or social media.
Do you want to learn more about how you can continue your journey and experience my virtual healing circles in real time? If so, check out livelifeunbroken.com/circle and join my free circle membership. Receive weekly reminders, bonus material and recaps, plus special offers, as well as access to my weekly virtual healing circles. If you're ready to leave behind the fears and limitations of the ego and step into the spiritual life you've long known is waiting for you, you're invited to join me, Jen Fable, for a soul-nourishing journey into the exploration of you, the universe, and all space in between. Take control of your spiritual journey to attain a new level of understanding and connection to yourself and the people in your life. During our time in circle together, I will share with you all the tips and tricks you need to make playing with energy fun, easy, and most of all, effective. Together, we'll learn how to cultivate our inner compass to enable us to walk our path with grace and ease. We'll open the space with a candle meditation, and after I will share with you my favorite grounding practices and lead you through a circle casting, guided meditation, and breath work, followed by a soul-inspiring gratitude practice. If your soul has been calling out to you and you're ready to tune in and listen, go to www.livelifeunbroken.com/circle and register today for your Zoom access information. That's www.livelifeunbroken.com/circle, CIRCLE. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.